That's definitely one of the best prices I've ever seen it at. And we also have Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster that just rolls right off the tongue, available for $25. Now, I'm a Shin Megami Tensei noob. I've been playing a ton of Shin Megami Tensei 5, and I think I'm gonna check out this game, honestly, because I like this series, I like this franchise, I like the demon collecting. I think it's pretty cool, fusing together different demons, the whole sort of dark and brooding atmosphere that's in it. It's definitely a very mature style game, and it definitely feels kind of like a mature Pokemon game. So Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster for $25, a great price. Of course, you have all those first-party Nintendo Switch games, most of which are available at GameStop for $26.99. There are other games included, though. I know Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is also going to be $40 at major retailers, and Super Mario Maker 2 is also going to be $40 at major retailers. So those are some games you'll want to have on your radar if you haven't added them to your collection yet. I definitely think that's a fair price point for all of those games. And I will say, it's a little bit of a quiet Black Friday, really. You know, usually we have so many games to talk about from so many major retailers, but it looks like this is our lineup for this year, and this is what you have to buy from. So let me know in the comments section down below what you plan on picking up. Yes, of course, whenever the eShop sales are revealed, we're going to do a video on that too, because I'm expecting those to be really good. If you looked at what they were doing over in Europe, which I didn't make a video on because of conversion rates and all that stuff, there were some really good sales, and I definitely have a good feeling that we're going to see some insane sales, especially when we're talking about indie titles and even first-party Nintendo titles with that, games that we haven't talked about in this list yet. But that's pretty much your roundup for all of the Black Friday deals. Between this and the GameStop video, you should have a pretty good indication of what games you want to buy. So like I said, let me know in the comments what games you plan on picking up during this Black Friday season, or are you just going to save all your money for a rainy day like a responsible adult? I don't recommend it. What if you don't wake up tomorrow? You know, you could have bought a game. You know, you wouldn't have played it because you wouldn't have woke up. But at least someone in your house might have played it, right? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like and share. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.
How in the world did Garfield get so popular? It's hard to imagine that Jim Davis's little comic strip from 1978 became this massive global media empire that generates $1 billion every year. A humble comedy strip where the main punchline was "cat is fat, haha." Or perhaps, if you're an English professor, a brief dissection on society's view on animal sentience and how we treat them as domesticated pets that share the same mind. But probably not, considering 40 years later, the punchline remains cat, fat, and lazy, haha.
No thanks, I'm full.
Regardless on how you feel about the character and comic, there's pretty much no chance you haven't heard about it. Even though the newspaper and newspaper comic strip have been disappearing with time, Garfield is omnipresent. With his status as a meme in 2020, it's pretty much guaranteed that this apolitical, lazy orange cat will be around for decades to come, but not without creating an amalgamation of unholy media in his wake. Garfield's status as a cultural icon has baffled me, but his impact on capitalism has left me even more confused. One look at the eBay's Garfield Twitter account, rest in peace, will showcase nearly 40 years of absurd, freaky, unreal merchandise, some bootlegged, some real, and all of it entertaining. His popularity can only be likened to something like the Minion, slightly cute thing, animated, easily inserted into any situation. He hates Mondays. Man, I hate Mondays. Oh my god, how relatable. Surprisingly, the generation that actually grew up with Garfield decided to adopt the Minion as the Facebook meme, so Garfield's kind of resurfaced as this existential thing. Now everyone wants to party with Garfield and friends, even if half of them are like horrifying Lovecraftian looking things. Truly, Garfield is eternal, John. So yo, it's Austin, and today we're going to be diving into the video game world of everyone's favorite lasagna-devouring cat, Garfield and Friends. Maybe one day I'll talk about the show itself, but for now, I really don't want to. It's also not a show, it's like a comic. It's like a world. I don't know, what is Garfield? But for now, let's dive into the never-ending hellscape known as Garfield video games. Our journey begins in the 1980s. The orange feline's been around in video games nearly as long as video games themselves. He lazily rolled out onto the Apple II around the same time as Oregon Trail during that mid-80s educational game boom. Kids gotta learn, kids like Garfield. Let's eat our words with Garfield. Or Garfield Double Dares. I don't know what that means. Not much to say here, you type words out. Both of these games look basically the same. His early origins are pretty much these low-budget nothing games. The same with Create with Garfield. You come home and you find out you just paid $20 to move Garfield and John stickers around. At least you can make them say whatever you want. There's a bunch of these abandonware educational games that came out over the years that aren't really worth talking about, but then one dropped that was a big fat hairy deal. That's what it's called. Garfield Big Fat Hairy Deal was developed by The Edge, a now defunct game developer who made old PC games back in the day like this or Snoopy, the cool computer game. They made two Garf games, both of which are extremely cursed. Hairy Deal is an adventure game where you gotta go rescue Arlene, Garfield's girlfriend, I guess? I never really understood why Jimothy Davis gave her these big old puckery lips. Side note, you ever notice how all these cats are able to communicate telepathically and without any movement at all? With the same panel copy-pasted 3 times. Come on, Jim. It's pretty simple. You save Arlene and you get yourself a big old whatever the heck this is. But not before finding yourself in a massive dungeon right underneath John's house that fades entirely to darkness. What is this? I just love cherry pie, Garfield says as a rat starts strafing. There's also their other game, Garfield Winter's Tale, also on the PC. Let's see if this one fares any better. Maybe not. This is just a bad minigame collection with terrible slowdown and old PC platforming. And a stretch button for some reason. He's trying his best. What about A Week of Garfield, the Japanese exclusive Famicom game that never made it to the States, even though it was based on an American franchise and all of the text was in English already. Psst, you'll be hearing this a lot today. A Week of Garfield is like a fever dream. It's 7 days with Garfield through some of the most terrible NES era platforming you can imagine, topped off with what has to be the best sprites in the biz. Now I know Garfield has a few iconic poses like his tongue out screaming, but I don't think this is right. His body changes sizes between animation. Anytime he jumps, his eyes look directly at the camera, directly at you, the player, saying, "What's wrong with you?" And he looks more like a bean here. And whenever you crouch, his body mass decreases by like 50%. And let's not forget his attack animation. Why does the foot shrink? Also, you got no iframes, so if you just like walk into an enemy who's also walking forward, it'll just kill you. So yeah, it's a bad game. After all of those games in 1989, we wouldn't see another Garfield video game for another 6 years in 1995, which was well after the primetime Garfield and Friends resurgence. So, I don't know what that was about. I guess the Garfield and Friends cartoon was all they needed at the time because the only game-worthy thing to release in the meantime were a Tiger Electronics handheld and an absurd Game Boy conversion called Garfield Labyrinth, also known as the real Ghostbusters, also known as Mickey Mouse 4. What? Well, some of y'all know about the Japanese Crazy Castle series that was relatively popular on the Game Boy, but for some reason, anytime a game would be released, it would get an American version, or in this case, a European conversion. In the past, it would be like Roger Rabbit becomes Bugs Bunny, or Mickey Mouse becomes Kid Clown. But for no good reason, Mickey Mouse became the real Ghostbusters in the States and Garfield Labyrinth in the PAL region. Number 2 on our Garfield games to not make it over here, by the way. This is a pretty simple puzzle platformer. The only important thing to take away from this is that they decided not to change the ending of the Mickey Mouse game. Imagine the romantic pairing of Mickey and Minnie Mouse getting back together after a long journey, except it's Garfield and Odie. Oh my god. My point being, it doesn't count. I want that 100% GMO-free Garfield video game life, not this ROM hack nonsense. God damn it, my hair's too long. COVID, come on. Stay inside, wear a mask. More importantly, at this point in the video, you're probably sitting there asking, why in the world did you want to cover Garfield games in the first place? And it's mainly because I wanted to talk about this childhood video game that I had that I thought was pretty decent. Garfield Caught in the Act for the Sega Genesis. It's weird to think that the first really obtainable Western Garfield video game came out nearly 20 years after the comic started, but here we are. Garfield Caught in the Act wasn't just a licensed game. It wasn't just a Genesis exclusive. It was developed in-house by a studio they bought out, Sega Interactive, also known as Interactive Designs. It would also be their last game. Whoops. That's a shame though, because it's actually pretty alright, especially for licensed and Garfield standards, which isn't really saying anything, I guess. The story is pretty simple. It's basically Garfield art online. He's watching TV when it gets busted, so he fixes her up and immediately gets sucked into it, giving us multiple worlds of adventure. It's the most standard plot for your theme park variety action platformers of the day, but this particular frame of Garfield getting sucked into the TV scared the shit out of me as a kid. It's so much more detailed and horrifying than Garfield. This looks like it belongs in X-Men instead. It's closer to the I want lasagna, John memes of today than your 3-panel haha lasagna. The game itself is like a solid 6.5 out of 10. It's got a lot of character and fun animations, which is pretty rare for anything involving this little orange creature, but there's certainly better 2D platformers you could be playing. It's lacking that blast processing that made Genesis games have their signature speed and chaos, but also lacking the fun of a slower game like Earthworm Jim. It's got variety with the whack-a-mole sections, the side-scrolling item collections, and the worlds are vastly different enough that it'll keep your attention, but I mean, just go play Rocket Knight. Just go do that. Rocket Knight Adventures. Still not ported. What's up with that? Weirdly enough, Garfield Caught in the Act has a small expansion called The Lost Levels that was exclusive to the Sega channel. That's one of 14, by the way. Most of these have been ported to other consoles or collections, but the Lost Levels remain lost. Caught in the Act and the Lost Levels were one of Sega of America's biggest projects at the time, but the 32X version of the game got canceled. You can see these Lost Levels in the Game Gear version, but that's pretty much it for Sega's Tango with the Tabby. Well, unless you count the Sega PC Sonic and Garfield pack, 3 big games, 1 enormous action pack. Wait, the third game's Baku Baku? What the heck? Rest in peace, Sega Interactive. I didn't really know you very well, or at all, really. I don't think I've played any of your games, but I will say thanks for Green Dog, the beached surfer dude. Everyone remembers that, right? If I told you that we already reached the top, the very peak of Garfield video games, would you believe me? For the next few years, Garfield video games were regulated to little CD racks in the shelf bookends at Walmart, or a book fair in the case of Scholastic's comic book maker featuring Garfield. Garfield's Mad About Cats. It's a game about learning about different types of cats. Garfield's Typing Pal. What do you think this is about? The next big Garfield video game release would be Garfield for the PlayStation 2, and it didn't make it to the States. Well, not until a year later on the PC. Apparently, I can't for the life of me find a copy of this on eBay or anywhere I search, so I'm not even sure if it really exists, but I played it, and good God.
I'm very angry with you. You've eaten my carefully prepared lasagna. I will put you on a diet. I really mean it this time, Garfield. Gee, I hate seeing John upset like that. Just kidding.
You know, there's 2 video games where you control a character who uses a handy vac as their primary tool, but Luigi's Mansion this ain't. Garfield 2004 is what I'm gonna be calling it, is a game about cleaning up your dog's bullshit and putting everything back in order before John gets home so you don't have to go on a diet. That's the entire game. Just 2.5 hours of running back and forth, scooping up items, and then placing them somewhere else. All while not Lorenzo Music says one-liners to you over...
Things I do for stardom.
And over...
I hate Mondays.
And over...
Don't worry. Be stupid.
For some reason, the main and only mechanic in this game, the vacuum, has a terrible hitbox. I've been trying to vacuum up the stupid picture for like 5 minutes and no angle works. I can't get it to suck up. I can't. Why you would make the literal one gameplay mechanic in your game so finicky is beyond me. But I guess that explains why this didn't come out over here. Also, it sucks. Next. Garfield's first foray into the third dimension wasn't very good, but hey, at least he made it into the 2000s. Moving forward, from 2005 to 2009, Garfield would get 9 video games. That's right, 9. Be it on the Game Boy Advance or the DS. If you searched the deepest of bargain bins, you knew you could find yourself a Garfield video game. But the burning question remains, if it was good or not. It's not. Starting on the Game Boy Advance, we've got The Search for Pookie and Garfield and His 9 Lives. One of these is okay. This period of Garfield video games were ruled over by the Game Factory, a Danish publisher that was responsible for bringing us Cartoon Network Racing, which isn't a great sign, but The Search for Pookie would be the first one they released. We open with Garfield having a little catnap when a trio of robbers break in and take the teddy bear, that's it. But they're mice, so I guess they're just mad. You'd think they would be a rat, considering mice are like 3 inches long and probably don't possess the strength to move a teddy bear, but that's fine, whatever. Let's get our bear back. Oh wait, does that say 434? Oh god. Every level in The Search for Pookie is divided into 3 sections with one goal. Collect specific items and bring it to the specific drop-off point. Just like Garfield 2004, except in this game you have to platform left to right, typically backtracking 3 times. You can only hold one of the objectives at a time, so you gotta go back and forth, move on to the next level, and do it again, all while collecting whatever food the cat wants to eat. Also, yeah, that's over 400 collectibles for one level. How much food does this thing need? He's gonna die. And that's the entire game. Just repeat that for like 4 hours. Or you can flip over to the other one, Garfield and His 9 Lives. Well, for starters, we've got a few more frames of animation here and not whatever that was. 9 Lives feels like your standard Super Nintendo era platformer, and that's to its credit. I don't expect much from Garfield. Your only goal is still the same, collecting whatever items you need to reach the end of the level. You're equipped with a shoulder charge and a kick, so it's definitely one of the better feeling Garfield games. Things actually like feel not awful. For some reason, if you hold down while in midair, Garfield does a flying elbow drop, which doesn't do any damage though, so I guess somebody just wanted to animate that.
I am the queen!
But whoever made the decision to start you with any amount of lives that is not 9 needs to be fired. A lot of Garfield games from this era are pretty much just the same thing. They're either a mediocre platformer or a mediocre collection of mini games with really nothing special going on. There's Garfield Nightmare, which is probably the most generic video game I've ever played. It's got really nothing going on except for the fact that whenever you crawl, he doesn't like do a cat thing. There's also Garfield Saving Arlene, which is a PlayStation 2 game the US never got. That makes 4. It's kind of the predecessor to another game we did get, but we'll come back to that later. So push that out of the way. But one we did get on the PC anyways was a game based off the hot sequel to the hot 2004 movie. Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties, the video game. More like Tale of Two or as it was known everywhere else, Garfield 2. I think about how Bill Murray accidentally signed on to voice the first movie thinking it was a Coen brother movie quite a bit, but apparently he was fine with it because he decided to do the sequel. The decision to make Garfield look the way he does and have every other animal in both of these films look just normal was a really strange one. He looks like an orange jelly bean running around with real animals. I don't know what was up with the mid-2000s and the cursed 3D reboots of older franchises like this, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Scooby-Doo, and the Smurfs, but clearly someone thought these were good ideas. Even though this movie was critically destroyed, it still pulled a profit. I definitely contributed to that. Sorry guys, I was 14, I should have known better. So what's this one about? Garfield and John, played by Breckin Meyer, who is not in this game, go to the UK. What's up with Garfield in Europe? Y'all getting game exclusivity and now personal visits? Some bullshit. The game itself is actually okay. It's just kind of freaking weird. I guess they shoved a ton of language options into the mix because the dialogue speed ranges here from like slow Garfield talking to gotta go fast because we're running out of data on the disc.
Press X twice to do a double jump. It's easy. Odie will show you. He does a double jump and at the exact moment...
This follows the same trend that Garfield 2004 did, where the console version didn't make it to the States, but the PC version did. I don't know why he keeps skipping the PlayStation here. I'm not really sure that the market who would purchase a Garfield trademark video game is the PC market in 2006, but what can you do? We were more worried about BioShock and how many times you can install it. Did they ever fix that? It's a pretty run-of-the-mill platformer with some weird physics. It actually reminds me a lot of Jak and Daxter in Mario 64. The castle that he takes control over is like a hub world, and there's a bunch of objectives you do in the smaller levels. This includes flying around, running in circles, taking control of a mouse, and trying to make yourself vomit by spinning around like this. What is this attack? How do you beat this? There's also a dancing minigame. Hatsune Miku, get out. Yeah, it sucks. Next. Before we move on, I need you all to pull out your phone, and subscribe by the way, and I need you to type in whatever app store that you have, Garfield. Do it. I'll wait. Ever since the birth of the modern free-to-play game app era, you pretty much expect literally every franchise to have some sort of thing. If you ever wanted to play the Thomas and Friends Gacha Runner, wait, what? I'll sit patiently waiting for the Wild Arms Gacha game to get translated, which it won't, but until then, it's good to know that we can relax with the literal endless amount of Garfield mobile games. First up, Garfield Rush. Ever play Temple Run? Well, now you can play the hit free-to-play endless runner with Garfield. What about Garfield Run Road Tour? It's also Temple Run, except this one doesn't want to start for me. Garfield's just running in place forever. Garfield. Simply Garfield. Or a Garfield living large, I guess. Someone decided to turn the fat cat into a Tamagotchi type of thing. He wants ball, you give him ball. He smells like crap, you give him a bath. Why does this exist? Garfield Bingo. I can imagine my parents playing this for like 3 hours a day while also bugging me about it on Facebook. Garfield Chef. It's a match 3. What can I say? Garfield Snack Time. It's also match 3, although this one's a little closer to Tsum Tsum Clone. Not much to say here. Garfield Smog Buster. This one's an auto-scroller shooter where for some reason the orange cat is given a future space vehicle with laser guns. Is this supposed to be Garfield fighting a virus pandemic? I'm not sure, but this has to be the ugliest menu I've seen in a while. Garfield My Big Fat Diet. This is a stealth action game. You're on a diet, but you're an asshole who's gonna sneak food anyways. It's fine, it's a mobile game, but why is it that every single one of these is asking for my age? I feel like these Garfield games are closer to data collection tools than games. They want access to my camera, my gallery, my location. He just needs it for the hit game Garfield Go. That's right, everyone, I braved the outside to play Garfield Go for all of you. I'm sure everyone watching knows of Pokemon Go, the hit mobile game that encouraged walking around. Well, with Garfield Go, you do the same thing. Except instead of catching creatures, you're on the eternal treasure hunt to find food and comic strips. That's right, I got me a rare Garfield panel, but not before having to go into my phone settings and manually enable GPS because the app didn't ask for permission. It kinda just sat on this screen forever. Whenever you find a coin on your map, the camera turns on and it switches to AR mode because you have to spin around to find Garfield. Once you do, you have to give him food to eat and then find him again to open a treasure. It's very cursed. There's big carnival tents, which I thought were gonna be Garfield raid towers, but no, they're just crappy mini games. But hey, at least we can unlock hats. I like how he doesn't even walk on the map when you're moving. What a gem. All of these are just what I found on the Google Play Store. I'm sure if you search the others, there's more, and I'm sure if you include Flash games on the browsers on the internet, then it's just gonna be this endless cursed world of Garfield things, and that's too much for this one video. But there are a couple other console games we haven't touched, and kart racing. Garfield Kart and Garfield Kart Furious Racing are about what you'd expect. Terrible kart racing games where the audio is so borked you can't even hear the music over the engines revving. But I already talked about those. Then there's games like Garfield Gets Real, Garfield's Fun Fest, and the Garfield Show Threat of Space Lasagna. These all blend together with earlier games of being like run-of-the-mill 4 or 5 out of 10 platformers or minigame collections. You know, the bottom tier licensed dreck of the late aughts. Everyone's favorite. The last game that I'm going to be talking about today is probably the worst one. It's the one that could have been decent, the one that had like a lot going for it. It was a sequel. It was a game on the PlayStation 2. It actually made it into the United States, but they did Garfield Lasagna World Tour. Garfield Lasagna World Tour doesn't make sense. It was a PlayStation 2 game that released in 2007, 2 years into the next generation, and it came out at only $15. It's the sequel to a game that never even hit the States. They could have learned, but instead, we got one of the premier examples of a cursed licensed game. Let me explain. The game opens with Garfield breaking up with a cake before learning about a worldwide lasagna treasure hunt. Then Garf and Odie team up and leave the house together. Where is John? Where is an adult? How did they open the front door? But most importantly, who is this evil Garfield? They're doing the evil clone thing all the way to the eye patch. It's brilliant.
Forget it and follow me.
Lasagna World Tour is an action, use that word lightly, puzzle platformer that showed a lot of promise. You mainly control Garfield, but have the ability to summon Odie from the heavens to do your bidding. The entire game is presented with a comic book-like frame around it and will split into different camera angles for puzzle solving. Let's say there's a switch you gotta hit by kicking Odie into it. It'll show your angle, and with this, it's immediately more accessible than a lot of the platformers from the era where you just have to guess. It's just terrible though. Garfield has several different outfits and abilities he can get, most of them awful stereotypes. Nice going, Jim.
And that's Garfield.
There's Cowboy Garfield, which gives you access to a pop gun. Soccer Garfield, which gives you the ability to punt the ever-living crap out of that dog. In fact, in order to use Odie at all and progress, you're pretty much just abusing the poor thing. You're standing on his head as he floats in the water with his mouth wide open. That's not how it works. There's also Turban Garfield, where he gets the ability to hover for long distances. When you do it, it plays a little... that's no good. What about the level choice? We've got John's neighborhood immediately into an ancient Egyptian temple. There's also a trip to Italy. The music here is so stereotypical that I'm surprised it didn't just play the Spider-Man 2 pizza theme. Don't forget about Mexico, or as they're calling it, Mexican City. Wow. This game just smells like budget all over. The amount of stock sound effects here are unreal. When you fire a shot as Cowboy Garfield, it sounds identical to the reload sound effect in GoldenEye. It's also extremely easy to reproduce glitches. If you take fall damage and keep moving, Garfield's walking animation just stops without fail every time. But I think the worst part about this is how much of a slog it feels like. You're pretty much just doing really mindless, time-consuming puzzles over and over. And since there's no discernible actual combat in this game, you're basically doing the exact same thing over and over for eternity. Nothing happens in this game. Okay, I lied. There's a little bit of combat. Beyond that, it's just like kick an enemy to stun them. It'll probably miss and you'll take damage, but you know, combat. You get to control just Odie for a segment where actually it's just Garfield and Odie switching bodies, don't worry about it. And then there's a few run towards the screen levels as well. Like the minigame in Mickey Mania, but somehow worse. That's saying something. It's hard to explain how awful this feels. Anytime there's a tight ledge, I don't know if Garfield's gonna grab onto it or just drop because of how finicky it is. You have a bunch of abilities mapped to the same button, even though multiple triggers are not used at all. And sometimes you have to do some extremely precise platforming, and it's very unforgiving. Lasagna World Tour is just the worst. I don't care if this orange cat gets his lifetime supply of lasagna. I don't even care about Solidus Garfield. I'm out. Well, I mean, there's only one level left, so maybe I can...
Behold Venice, the city of lovers. Don't even think about it.
Stop! I decided to buy the domain for garfieldporn.com in the middle of doing research for this video, so you can check that out if you want after this. Garfield Lasagna World Tour. I want to die. I feel like, even though this is the end of the video and I've covered every major video game release, that this is the tip of the iceberg. I feel like things are gonna speed up now that apparently anyone can just buy the rights to Garfield. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll make some Garfield. Maybe I'll make some Garfield merchandise. Why not? It. You know, I originally wanted to do this video because of this little monstrosity right here and the fact that I got a kitty recently. His name is Vivi. He's very cute. He also doesn't like me yet. Cats take time. They take time. Doing this video made me maybe want to return to Garfield in the future because there's just, like, what is it? What? I don't get it. But for now, I need to get rid of this thing right here. Otherwise, my girlfriend's going to kill me. Okay, bye.
Where's my lasagna, John?
Garfield and Friends.
Special Patreon shout out to Brandon Howell, Chris Shelton, Christopher Olivia, Cliff Pro, Donald Dowdy, David Molnar, Eli Shane Stauffenecker, Flaming Fighter, Aimee, Jay Roos, Jeffrey Narvaez, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Jordy McCaffrey, Josh Garbage Lord, Kevin Zanowski, Kieran Arter, Legend Gary, Nitron, and Plasma Phoenix. Thank you very much for your generous support. Quick announcement, I'm going to be doing a big charity stream in favor of Equality Now on Saturday the 18th, so that's a week and a half from today. Next Saturday. I'll be announcing more details about the stream the next coming days on my social media channels, so make sure to follow us there. So stay tuned for that, and I'm gonna have a big sleep. Okay, goodbye.
Hey, nice to meet you. How you doing? Strawberry? Fine, fine. Very good, very good. So is what one fixing my street? For that reason, it's a lot of sound. Oh, sorry, sorry.
Hey guys, Metal Jesus here. Time for another Patreon question. This one comes from Arthur, and he asks, which PlayStation Vita games have you found to play very well on the PlayStation TV mini console? And what are your general thoughts on the PlayStation TV? Was it a missed opportunity? Great question here, and I'm going to start with Irene.
I love any opportunity that I get to talk about the PlayStation Vita. It is such an underrated console in a lot of ways. It's kind of like pre-Switch times, where you could actually lie in bed and bed game a game and then also have it on your TV. Now, my most played game on the PlayStation TV is definitely Neptunia U, Action Unleashed. It is a sort of hack and slash muso game, and I remember I was obsessed. It is actually good. I'm a huge Neptunia fan also. In a lot of ways, I feel like the Vita is my Neptunia console. I mean, most of the Neptunia games, they play well on the PlayStation TV, except for this one, Producing Perfection. It is actually not supported by the PlayStation TV, because it has a lot of touchscreen features. Other than Neptunia U, I actually also played this a bunch. Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 3. It is one of the stronger Neptunia games, definitely. And another game that I played a lot on the TV was this one. Mega Tag Mention Blonde plus Neptune versus Zombies. If you are unsure if a game plays on the PlayStation TV or not, they usually write it on the backside, like PlayStation TV compatible. So yeah, those are my games that I play the most. And yeah, underrated console. I love it. I love the Vita. I love both the PlayStation TV and the Vita. Definitely.
Alright guys, so the games I feel that play really well on the PlayStation TV, definitely Ys Lacrimosa of Dana. This game is one of my favorite games of all time. Fantastic experience. And on the Vita, it just really feels optimized for the system. This is a really good game. And another game I think plays well on the system is actually Skullgirls, 2D fighting game. Lots of fun, very well done. I always catch myself coming back to play this game like every couple of months. Really a lot of fun. And I'm going to mention one game that's probably doesn't play well on the PlayStation TV, and that is Resident Evil Revelations Part 2. Even though I like the game a lot, I thought it was somewhat a good port. It has its good points, but mostly bad. But still, it's another game I like playing on the system. The PlayStation TV was an awesome creation from Sony. It's unfortunate that it is very expensive now because when it was able to be 100% modded, that's when it was sought after. And unfortunately, during its initial release, it didn't sell very well. So Sony didn't really opt to kind of make more of them. But if you are lucky enough to have one in your collection, definitely utilize it for what you can. But anyways, those are my choices. I know they're not exclusive, but still, those are the games I like to go to when I play on the system.
So one of the best things about a Vita TV is that it's supported by most of the indie game developers that are releasing games for the Vita. So when they release a game, they usually are cognizant enough to make sure that it's going to work on your Vita TV. So that's something that's really cool compared to the entire library of games that, is hit or miss with the Vita TV. Unless you mod it. Now these two games I'm going to talk about work great on the Vita TV factory, so you don't have to worry about modding it if you don't want to. The first one is Retro City Rampage. I love this game so much. It's basically like Grand Theft Auto, top-down action. You can get in cars. It's got radio stations. It's filled with tons of pop culture icons like the Ninja Turtles, Batman. It's got a great sense of humor. Really fun game. Super fun. It's available on tons of other platforms, but I think the Vita TV version is really fun and it works right out of the box. So this one's definitely one of my favorites. Another one here is Halloween Forever. And Halloween Forever is a really cool pixel art style action platformer, but it looks like an NES game. Kind of has a little bit of a look like Ghosts and Goblins. Definitely has a Halloween vibe going on. You're a pumpkin guy. You have a little spit fire thing. Anyway, it's a really fun platformer, and it's just charming. Super cool. So I would highly recommend both of these Vita TV games.
Sony could have done so much more with the PlayStation TV. I mean, for one, why isn't every Vita game compatible? You actually have to hack it in order to whitelist every game. And while you're hacking it, be sure to add a sharp scale, so that way, instead of blurry 720p, you'll get somewhat crisp 720p. Now, Vita games are natively 540p and lower, so you'll have a box around them, but hey, they'll look really good. I like it.
That's not it. I was wondering where that went. Well, let me tell you something really quickly about the PlayStation TV and some great games that you can play on your PlayStation Vita. I can't tell you because I don't have a PlayStation TV. However, if I did, I think the compatibility is great and I think it's wonderful. It wasn't something that was heavily marketed though, was it? I mean, not just the PlayStation Vita wasn't very marketed the way it should have been, maybe the way it could have been, but PlayStation TV even less so. I remember hearing about it, I remember seeing it, but I wasn't exactly sure what it did. Like, what could it do? I didn't know these things. I also didn't bother doing the research on them, unfortunately. It wasn't until that they liquidated stock and they were selling them for like dirt cheap. I remember hearing stories about, I picked up a PlayStation TV for, it was like $10, $20 brand new and all that. And then that's when I started hearing about all the great things you could do emulation-wise and stuff like that through the PlayStation TV to watch your games, to play them, through your television, which is kind of, the optimal way of playing things. I mean, portable's great, portable's fine. I'd rather play games on my television. But yeah, just missed opportunity for sure. That's a great way to put it for what we could have had and what we could have seen with the PlayStation Vita, especially going to the PlayStation TV. Oh, the music from Enchanted Forest. Exactly what I was looking for.
Ooh boy, Metal Jesus gonna like this recommendation. Need for Speed Most Wanted. It plays great on the PlayStation TV, so definitely check that out. And oh god, what a missed opportunity. I mean, I feel like they gave up too early on this. It's got broken streaming services. It does not play key games that the Vita did, and the bundle came with a DualShock 3 when the DualShock 4 was out. I mean, they must have been being cheap. Who were they competing with? Set-top boxes? Consoles? What was it all about? I don't want you to give up yet, though. There is a dedicated community of modders out there making this thing better by the day. So I definitely dip into those communities and see how you can make it work better than Sony ever could.
Oh man, where do I start when it comes to the missed opportunity that is the PlayStation TV and also the PlayStation Vita? Now, like others have said, for the most part, the vast majority of indie titles that were released for the Vita will work just fine on the PlayStation TV. And I suspect that's because a lot of those games aren't really using the gimmicky aspects of the Vita. They're not using the back touchscreen, they're not using the camera, things like that. And so you can use a standard PlayStation 3 controller with them and play them just fine on the TV. But the other thing I want to kind of mention that doesn't get mentioned that often is that you can also play PSP games that you've bought through your PlayStation account on the Vita. I've done that many, many times, and in many ways it's actually kind of like a consoleized PSP. So these are digital only games, obviously, that you've downloaded through the store, as long as that's going to be available, but I do like that it has that ability. Also, the PlayStation TV will also play the downloaded PlayStation 1 games. So it's a very versatile little device, and yeah, just a total missed opportunity on Sony's part. I just think they didn't know what to do with it, or they didn't know how to market it well, but it is a really cool device, and I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of collectors want to add them to their game collection today. It's a pretty cool little system, and yeah, it's a bummer that Sony just didn't know what to do with it. But that was a great question, and I want to thank all of the YouTube creators that help answer this question. If you haven't checked out their channels, please do so. I'll put links down in the video description below. And as always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.
You can help. You got Nintendo Game & Watch. That's pocket power. Widescreen or multi-screen games you can play indoors or out. They tell you the score and even the time.
ドンキーコング、オイルパニックとマルチプルにドッキング。ゲームウォッチマルチスクリーン4種類。
When you talk to somebody about Nintendo's classic consoles, not many would bring up the Game & Watch. It was before the NES and didn't really withstand the test of time. But it had some good ideas, like the first ever D-pad, and paved the way for console and handheld gaming thereafter. We're now in Zelda's 35th year, and Nintendo is doing exactly what they did for Mario's 35th anniversary, and they've released a commemorative Game & Watch. Because everybody loved that Mario one so much. This Zelda one comes with some more games, and it's a pretty cool novelty item. A fun way to celebrate Nintendo. Sure, it's lacking features, but let's be real here. Nobody's getting this thing to play the games that are on it. People are getting this thing to leave on their shelves forever. And if you did want to get this thing just for the games, well, then you'd probably be disappointed that you spent $50. But you don't have to worry about that, because I've got some things here that are more worth your hard-earned money. Why would you play just Link's Awakening on this Game & Watch when you could play all this on this knockoff Game & Watch? This video is sponsored by Bespoke Post. Oh, man, I'm having a really hard time figuring out what to get Other Bob for Christmas, and I'm running out of time here. Hey, what's up? Nothing! I'm not buying Christmas presents for anybody! All right. Jeez. You don't have to buy me. I said I'm not buying anybody! All right. It's just that you have a lot of interests. It's really hard to buy you anything. There's only so much coffee I can buy one person. Hey man, it's fine. Have you ever heard of Bespoke Post? Yeah, I used to listen to them all the time. What? No. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club delivering awesome boxes of top shelf goods from under-the-radar brands. And it's free to join. Every month, Bespoke Post introduces users to cool new products from categories ranging from outdoor gear to kitchen goods, clothing, and more. Look at this big old knife you can get for cutting stuff. Preview your box before it's shipped. Based on your preferences, you'll get a box assigned to you, and before it's shipped, you'll get a preview of what's to come inside. To decide if you'd like to keep it, swap it for a different box, or skip the month entirely for no charge. You only pay for what you want. Every box has around $70 in retail value, but costs only $45. I'm getting this Mexican-inspired traditional hot chocolate setup so I can make some mochas for myself. And also the shawl so I can stay warm and toasty and look like this guy. That's a cool guy. 100% Shetland wool yarn, shorn from Shetland sheep. It's prized for its durability, wind and water resistance, and softness. Why wouldn't you get this? Of course I want this. Give me this one. To get 20% off your first box, click the link in the description below and enter code WolfDen20 at checkout. Or go to bspk.me/WolfDen20. WolfDen20. No, it's W-U. Don't touch me. I guess we should take some time to talk about the Zelda Game & Watch. It's a lot like the Mario Game & Watch that released last year. It's all right. I'm not sure why exactly they went with a Game & Watch. I think if they went with a Game Boy, a lot more people would lose their shit. But anyway, it comes with the original Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, and Link's Awakening, the original Game Boy version. There's also the Game & Watch Classic Vermin, but with Link instead of the generic Game & Watch guy. It's kind of a huge deal that Link's Awakening is on here. This is the first time Nintendo has even acknowledged any of their Game Boy games since the Virtual Console, at least to my knowledge. It's a little weird that they landed on this version of Link's Awakening instead of the Game Boy Color version, since this is a color screen. Also, for $50, games on here. I do like the green color palette they went with, though. It's also a watch, let's not forget, but this isn't the 80s anymore. If you want to leave this thing on, you're going to have to leave it plugged in. The screen is way too vibrant to last for days on that battery. If you leave it plugged in, it'll look like this. And in order to have it propped up, you have to leave it in this kind of ugly cardboard Nintendo included in the packaging. I'm crapping on this a lot, but there was a lot of attention to detail in the design here. It's definitely a collector's item, and it plays the games great. The screen is really nice, the audio is surprisingly loud and crisp. And I kind of like the form factor. It's nice and thin and fits right in your pocket. It's just that having these 3 games in a portable form factor isn't very exciting anymore. It's like a little exciting that it's an official Nintendo product, but that's about it. I know Nintendo likes to pretend that other devices don't exist, but hey man, I've had my entire retro game library in a similar form factor for years now, and it all fits right in my pants pocket, and I don't even have big pants. And the best you can do is 3 games? This whole thing reminded me that there are a ton of options when it comes to portable emulation, and a lot of them are Game & Watch themed, just to stick it to Nintendo a little bit more. I got 2 of them here, the Anbernic RG300X and the Powkitty Q20 Mini. Unfortunately, I could only get the ugly orange and white version of the Q20. So if you think the Game & Watch design is ugly, don't worry, it can get worse. The Anbernic is less so taking inspiration from the Game & Watch and more so taking inspiration from the Game & Watch Edition Game Boy Micro, except it's a bit bigger. It's got a real cheap plastic look made even cheaper by the horrible silver shoulder buttons. But I like Anbernic. They've made some of my favorite portable emulators in the past. This one doesn't meet the same sort of quality standards when it comes to the build, but the software is pretty legit. I mean, the firmware is a little outdated, but it can play NES all the way up to PlayStation 1. And it does them all pretty good. It even has 4 shoulder buttons laid out horizontally, but the button layout works just fine for PlayStation games as long as you're not playing, like, Ape Escape. As far as portable emulators go, it's not the most powerful by any means. I had some weird stuttering occasionally during GBA emulation, but nothing game-breaking. Ooh, what is that? It just felt like the game took a second to get going. It handled PlayStation 1 emulation surprisingly well. The screen is pretty looking. It's comfortable to hold, even if it is plasticky. The buttons are a nice plastic, at least, a nice departure from the actual Game & Watch's spongy rubber buttons. And Anbernic always has a good D-pad. This thing even has a mini HDMI out. It looks like absolute dog shit, but I guess you can pass those off as scan lines.
Okay, I swear we got this to work yesterday, but I just tried it on 3 different monitors now and it's not working at all. So I don't know, maybe don't rely on that input on the top.
It also has a vibrate function, which is interesting because like 2 games that it supports would have a vibrate function. And it has other features that aren't really relevant. All that really matters is it plays almost all games great. Now, I didn't get this from the source. I got it from a reseller on Amazon. So this is technically a Haihuang RG300X. And it looks like they even cut off the Anbernic logo on some of the product photos. The reason I bring this up is because on the Anbernic website, it says that it comes with no games. You have to provide your own ROMs. And that's probably how it should be. But this Amazon listing just straight up says it comes with 5,171 games on a 64 gigabyte micro SD card. That is 5,168 more games than this Zelda Game & Watch. I'm sorry, it's 5,167 if you include Vermin. I don't really necessarily like when these sort of devices come with games pre-installed on them because I feel like it's going to ruin portable emulation for the rest of us. If more of these devices come out with pirated games pre-installed on them, then it's more likely that big companies like Nintendo are going to crack down on the whole portable emulation industry. And let's just say you want to play some Pokemon. Any minute now. Any minute now. I'm just kidding. You can hit the shoulder buttons to scroll faster. The second Game & Watch style device that I got was the Powkitty Q20 Mini, which was repurposed as the Credev Zone Q20 Mini. I kind of like this form factor a little more. It's nice and compact. It only has 2 shoulder buttons, which could be a problem because this thing also plays everything up to and including PlayStation 1. I had some weird hiccups when playing PlayStation 1. Jill Valentine is just cutting out when I load to a different screen. But again, nothing game-breaking. It also played GBA games just fine, but it struggled pretty hard with SNES games. I changed some settings on both of these for screen size, and they both scaled fine, but the Q20 had some slowdown struggles regardless, and even did some weird stuff to A Link to the Past. A very similar issue to Nintendo Switch Online's version of Ocarina of Time. Weird emulation issues. It also failed the Yoshi's Island test. If you don't know, Yoshi's Island on Super Nintendo uses a Super FX 2 chip in the cartridge, so it's a little harder to emulate. It's a good stress test for SNES emulation. The Anbernic handled it much better. It also sounds much worse than the Anbernic. Basically, the Anbernic wins on all fronts aside from the form factor. I hate the color of this POW Kitty, but you can also just get it in the classic red, gold with black buttons. Just not from Credev Zone. You have to get it from POW Kitty directly. But the Credev Zone one comes with 2,000 games. The library looked a little emptier than 2,000, but at least there's games on there. It also came with a cute little case and charge cable. The benefit here is that this one is just $50, so the same price as the Game & Watch. So for what it does play good, it's still playing more than this Game & Watch. Look, again, I know nobody is actually getting these official Nintendo Game & Watches to actually play the games. If you are, then you're being a little ripped off. It's a collector's item, and I'm sure that Nintendo knows that. Although they do value their IP just a little bit too much. They're making a big deal out of the games that are on here. Although the games that are on here are phenomenal games. But technology has existed for years now that has allowed us to play these games and more in a similar form factor. Whether Nintendo likes that or not, the best way to prevent piracy is to give consumers an easy way to purchase those digital goods. And Nintendo is very, very bad at that. I should probably make it clear that if you did want a portable emulator to play all of these different types of games, then I still wouldn't really recommend either of these Game & Watch style devices. The POW Kitty Q20 doesn't really play games all that great, and the Anbernic cost me about $90. And for that price, you can get some better devices that can do a little bit more and much better quality. If you want a good portable emulator, I still recommend the RG350M and the RG351V, both by Anbernic. Just put your own ROMs on there. There's a new version of the RG350M that I've heard good things about. The 351V will even do Dreamcast, N64, and DS games with some limitations. There's also a new Retroid, the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. This supposedly fixes a lot of the UI issues I had with the original, but I still haven't gotten to try it myself. There's so many incremental updates on these things, it's hard to keep up. I have videos on the RG350M, the RG351V, and the original Retroid Pocket 2 if you're interested in any of those. The problem with all of those is that they can be a little bit pricey. I mean, it's worth it because they can do a lot more, so you get a lot out of it, and the quality is there, but I understand if you want something a little bit simpler. I still think one of the best deals in this space is the original Pocket Go that I talked about years ago now. Yo, I haven't charged this thing in months. That's crazy. It's about the size of a Game Boy Micro and plays everything up to PlayStation 1, although it only has 2 shoulder buttons, so don't count on it for PlayStation 1. But for just $40, being able to play NES, SNES, Game Boy Advance, and a whole lot more in such a compact form factor is pretty unbeatable. But again, these Game & Watch consoles are for the collectors. That's why it has, like, fun little animations and stuff. But, like, would you rather have a fun little animated clock? Or all of your N64 games? You know? So what do you guys think about the Zelda Game & Watch? Did you decide to pick it up, or are you saying, nah? Leave it in the comments below. Add me on Twitter, any and all this other social media garbage. Or these portable emulators, what do you think of those? Have you picked any of those up? Have you tried any of these that I'm talking about in the video? If you're interested in any of these portable emulators and you like to tinker a little bit, I highly recommend people like Retro Game Core. They will show you how to get better firmware on the devices that you want. So maybe the RG300X could be a great device if you can get some better firmware on there. But if you just want to get something going right out of the box, that's why I like the 350V. 351V. That's why I like the 351V so much. Also, thank you to Bespoke Post for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out if you're interested in any of that stuff. Also, I don't do this often, but I posted a video over on youtube.com/BobWolf. It's about my new MacBook that I got and the whole desk setup that I have going along with it. So if you're interested in that, go check that out as well. But of course, the most important thing that you can do to help support this channel right here is just subscribe to it, and I thank you very much for that. Make sure you have notifications on if you want every single video, because YouTube's not going to tell you about all of them. And share this video with a friend who is maybe interested in something like this and maybe wants something a little bit better. Thank you guys very much. Have yourself a very good week.
That is not the noise that I was expecting to come from that gargoyle. Hey everyone, we're back. We made it to High Guardian Spice episode 2. We finally get to the actual academy that the plot is based around. So all the new students gather into the dome of the school and the dean comes out, or should I say deans. Now they're known as the Triad, and they're kind of in charge of the High Guardian Academy. As you can see, there is speculation that they are supposed to be the same woman, but different life periods of her time. That's supposed to be something deep about maturity and, you know, how we're different people throughout our lives. But me personally, I've watched Danny Phantom growing up. I think Clockwork did it better. Now, while they're all gathered under the dome, they do meet up with Parsley again and Time. And remember how Parsley said she was going to give Rosemary her locket all fixed and ready to go when she saw her at school? Well, apparently the writers didn't, because that didn't happen. Also, so long as I'm making fun of the voice acting, does anyone else think that Parsley sounds like Jimmy Neutron?
Here! I am here! Parsley, I am here!
They find out that Time is actually Parsley's roommate, which explains why she was there when they were going to get the locket fixed. And you know, it also kind of forces them to hang out together, I guess, because Time is going to be around Parsley and Parsley's going to be around Rosemary and Sage. You know, so even though they got off to a bad start, they're basically being forced to be friends. Now, before their classes begin, the Triad gives them an assignment.
We have a thing to say.
Now, since they are entering the High Guardian Academy, they're going to be under the vows of the High Guardians. But for their first assignment, they are to yell into a well their own personally written vows. Now, at the end of the episode, we circle back to this assignment, but to give you the full experience of watching this episode, I'll just tell you everything in between that happens, and then we'll get back to why the Wells assignment was stupid. So they all go to their separate classes. Rosemary goes to an ethics class first. During class, she has a very lukewarm introduction to Snapdragon. They both kind of snicker at each other when they open up their books and a lizard comes out. Then she draws him a picture of the two lizards and gives it to him. He, of course, assumes that she's making fun of him and throws it back in her face. And her big takeaway from this is that Snapdragon is a mean guy. Next, we see Sage's class where they're learning magic stuff. And this is where we first get introduced to Professor Caraway, who explains that while old magic is a fundamental and you still need to learn it, we're mostly going to be learning about new magic and terror spheres, aka magic staffs. Yes, magic staffs and wands are supposed to be the new magic, even though that's very old for, you know, anyone who looks into fantasy. You'd think it would be the other way around, where like magic staffs, tomes, and wands would be the old magic and the new magic would be like just using your hands. Now, Sage only knows old magic, and her parents only want her to use old magic, so she feels pretty out of place. She also manages to get a bully. Oddly enough, Professor Caraway doesn't say anything about the girl bullying her in front of the whole class. He just kind of laughs with the bully.
So your family can read? That is wild.
Parsley, in her blacksmithing class, does so well that she actually moves up to a more advanced class. And then we get the announcement that it's time to, I guess, pick your electives. So everyone is to go outside and look at the different options for their special thing.
You gotta start running! We need to get to the rotunda!
I just wanted to note that they did have a black man voice acting for this show, and instead of making him this character, they made him the evil white guy. Now, the elective montage is kind of pointless. It's kind of just put there to, like, insert a montage of jokes where Rosemary is really bad at everything. Afterwards, we get back to the regular classes, and Sage goes to a potion class with her bully. Everyone has totally not suspicious tea at their desk, and she decides to randomly just knock her tea over, just because. Then we get introduced to the potions professor, and she tells them all to drink the tea. The tea is poison, that is turning them into hideous monsters and will eventually kill them. And their first assignment is to find a cure for the poison that the teacher gave to all of their students, but all of them are, you know, so stressed out, and some of them are incapable of creating a potion because they don't have any hands anymore. So the only one who's actually able to find the cure is Sage, because she didn't drink the potion. Now, if the point of making them drink poison is to put them under a high stress situation to see how they deal with it, then I would argue that Sage didn't pass because she was never put under a high stress situation like the others were. She never had any risk of dying like everyone else in class did. So of course she's the only one who's able to find the cure. But one has to wonder, how does anyone pass this teacher's class? I really hated this scene because it really points out all of the bad parts of Hogwarts. Like, the big criticism on Harry Potter is that the professors were always putting the students in really extremely dangerous situations. Students were dying left and right on all of those movies. And instead of this show trying to avoid falling into that same pitfall, they decided to emphasize that pitfall and make it a trench. Not only do the teachers not try to protect the students, but they actively try to kill the students! Wonderful academy. Rosemary, on the other hand, is wrestling with some baby dragons, it looks like, and she's the only one in her class who is failing. Which is ironic because Rosemary is revealed to have gotten training from her mother, who's a professional warrior. You would think that she would be more experienced. You know, Parsley was more experienced because she had all this blacksmithing experience, and she ended up moving up a class. But Rosemary, she has experience, and yet she's failing at very basic warrior classes. I think that this is just a shoehorned attempt to try to show Rose as the underdog, because people relate more to underdogs, but it just doesn't make that much sense. With Sage, it made sense that she's kind of the underdog because she's not allowed to learn new magic, and that's going to be a huge thing that holds her back throughout the classes. Now that we have montaged through all of their classes, we finally circle back to the well assignment. So the triad comes out, and they're like, okay, we told you all to give us your very personal vows and yell them into this well. All of you were wrong about your vows. Your personal vows were wrong. So then they use their magical power to bring up the hologram magical recording from the well, and all of their vows get publicly shown to the entire first year class, and the triad laughs and criticizes the students for their personal vows. And then instead they start to state the true vow of the High Guardian Spice Academy. And basically the reason why all of their vows were wrong was because neither of them talked about giving up their life. They lecture everyone all of you need to do better. And then that's it.
Okay, bye.
And Rosemary doesn't take that seriously. She's like, oh yeah, they're just saying that to scare newbies away. And then the episode ends.
We survive.
So, just to recap, that well assignment was pointless. They had so much build-up behind it, and it holds no weight, and they're not even being graded on it. So is it really an assignment? I don't know. What happened to the people who didn't yell into the well? Were they expelled? What would happen if someone got it right? What would happen if someone said, yeah, I'll give my life for the academy? Would they applaud them and put them on a shoebox? The point of episode 2 is to just show all the classes that they'll be attending and to introduce the teachers. It's not a bad idea on paper, but it did turn out pretty messy and everything felt like a very long montage. Overall, this is another episode where not much happens. They seem to be really focused on setting up bullies and, having Sage feel really nervous about her first day, to which Rose responds with, you can't be nervous because it makes me sad. And then Sage goes, I guess I won't be nervous then. Best pep talk ever. That's about all you get from High Guardian Spice episode 2. Another episode that feels like filler, but I'm sure something will happen in episode 3, right? Right? Thank you guys for watching. Remember to like if you did enjoy the review, comment down below, help support the channel, subscribe if you want to see more videos from me, especially if you want to see more of these reviews from me. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, bye!
Too bad one of your strengths isn't writing.
Program restart. Shutting down all systems. If I could find a way out of my mind.
What's going on, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming back with another video, and today we've got the box office breakdown for this past weekend. Before going any further though, please make sure you smash that like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or a live stream goes live on the channel. So I actually had a box office breakdown for last weekend, but because of various technical issues, it was not able to be posted. So I will talk a little bit about that weekend as we go through the course of this box office breakdown. So I will focus not only, of course, on Ghostbusters, but I will also focus on Eternals, as that was the big film of last weekend. And what we saw from last weekend was that there actually is a chance for Eternals to break even. It's an outside chance, and it's going to rely completely on the foreign market, but it did add another $50 million because mostly of the foreign market this past weekend. And so that is, of course, kind of playing out the way that I had expected it to, but we'll have to, of course, follow that, and we will, of course, cover you and have you updated every single weekend for these box office breakdowns. But the big news of this specific weekend, of course, is that Ghostbusters Afterlife has not only reached the expectations that many people had for it who actually went to go see it and were excited by it, but also very much surpassed those expectations, making $60 million in the global market debut. This is a movie that is making the vast majority of its money and will make the vast majority of its money from the domestic marketplace, as the Ghostbusters franchise is typically not one that does incredibly well overseas. The big thing about this movie, though, is that it cost half the amount that Ghostbusters 2016 did, and so therefore, even though as of right now, in like-for-like days, First Fridays compared, adjusted for inflation, this film is not doing as well as Ghostbusters 2016 did, it is still doing better in the fact that it cost a lot less, and it is being prepped for a very successful Thanksgiving week, as this movie is going to play very well with a lot of different family audiences. But going into first this article from Deadline, as it says, there was a lot of holdover play this session overseas with one new Hollywood edition in Sony's Ghostbusters Afterlife, which came in essentially on par The pre-weekend offshore projections at 16 million in 31 international box office markets. However, a domestic's overperformance, the Jason Reitman-directed sequel, trapped a better-than-expected $60 million global opening. In IMAX, the worldwide start was 4.7 million. And like-for-like overseas, Ghostbusters is currently tracking ahead of Free Guy, Jungle Cruise, and Cruella. And that is a very big deal because with all of those films being mentioned, those were films that had pretty massive budgets in comparison to this film. And so if this movie is already doing better than those films did internationally and is set to have a pretty solid domestic run, then this movie is in a pretty good position even after its opening weekend to break even and also to make some profit. Sony, of course, has done pretty well so far this year as far as having films that do relatively well, whereas places like Warner Brothers, because of its HBO Max model, and Disney because of its Disney Plus model, and also just because, Disney just sucks, we, of course, have seen those films and those studios from those films really struggle in a lot of different ways. So going more into the actual numbers themselves, as we can see from the domestic totals here, again, domestically, we have Ghostbusters Afterlife coming in at $44 million at over 4,000 screens. So even though that is definitely not the strongest per theater number that we have seen so far this year, it does set up for a successful, what is likely to be a successful week ahead, especially with Thanksgiving coming up. And they're really going to try and hammer hard marketing, I am imagining, during this time period to try and drive families to go see this movie. And obviously being available in the vast majority of theaters and also not being that long of a film as well, being closer to 2 hours, means more showtimes, more accessibility, which in general means more opportunities to make money, more opportunities to make some profits. And so that is what they are hoping for this coming week. So even though, as I said, it's falling right now behind where Ghostbusters 2016 was, I imagine that after this week, I would not be surprised if we see that change just a little bit. Eternals finally dropped to number 2 with a 60% drop in its third week of release, down to $10.8 million. This is a film that's just not going to be that huge when we talk about it domestically. It's a film that's tracking behind a lot of other films that have come out this year. So it's going to have one of the lower, if not one of the lowest domestic releases, not just this year, but also in just MCU history in general. But it is doing a lot better internationally. And that is, of course, I think what's going to be the saving grace. If it gets to the break-even number of $500 million worldwide, it'll be because of the overseas market, which, as I said, added another $50 million or so this past week. But is that going to be enough, and is it going to be able to hold itself up enough in those markets to continue to make money? We'll have to, of course, wait and see. Clifford the Big Red Dog dropped to third place with a 51% drop in its second week, and because of a decently sized budget there, we're looking at a potential loss for Paramount. King Richard as well, coming out from Warner Brothers this weekend, had a very small $5.7 million. This is the one that's about the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena Williams, and so apparently no one cares about that, which is great for me to see at the very least, but $5.7 million for its domestic opening. All the while, Dune, in its fifth week of release, had another respectable 45% drop. So again, it's remaining underneath the 50% drop in its weeks after the first couple of weeks. So that is a good, again, strong hold. It's going to cross $100 million probably next weekend or by the time next weekend's numbers come around. The issue, of course, with Dune is that it's kind of running out of time and it's running out of theater space availability overseas, as well as it's been out in the overseas market in various big markets for a long time. Dune is really right now not set to reach its break-even point, but it is getting close enough to where 4K Blu-ray sales could actually be a saving grace for that film to be profitable, but not to mention, of course, those other factors that we can never really know exactly how much of an impact it has. For instance, the HBO Max numbers, right? How many new subscribers, how many new people were brought in because of this movie, etc., right? Any other financial dealings. So Dune is getting close to that part where even though it might be a box office flop still based on just the numbers available, it still has some potential there. And then Venom still continuing to make money as well. Over $200 million domestically. Again, a film I don't think a lot of people thought was going to be that successful. So not anywhere close still to what it was able to do worldwide, internationally in the first film, but it definitely is doing incredibly well domestically this time around. And No Time to Die, of course, is another one that I'll talk about more. So if you want more details about all of those other films, go check out my box office breakdown on my main channel, OMB Reviews, on YouTube and Odyssey. because I will have full breakdowns of all of those various films. But I'm going to focus on Ghostbusters and Eternals for the Geeks and Gamers channel here. So as I said, $16 million in its worldwide opening, so a pretty strong start. This film was expected to be worldwide around 40 to 45 million. Even Sony had very small projections, about $25 to $30 million domestically they thought the film was going to do. So it went far beyond that. Then when we had the Saturday update, because of the Friday box office numbers being reported, we saw that they had the projections of around 40.5 million domestically. We see that it's even exceeded that at this point in time. So we could actually see by the end of the day on Monday or Tuesday, when they adjust the weekend numbers for the actual numbers and not just the projections, we could see this film actually end up being higher. And so if you have not gone to see this film yet, I still highly would recommend that you go see it. I was a huge fan of it. It's a great mixture of nostalgia and also still being able to bring in newer audiences with some of the younger cast members as well. And I think it's a very good balance of that. I know that some people would like to have seen a little bit more of the nostalgia parts and less so of the new ones, but when you think about this film and what kind of audiences it's trying to bring in and the fact that it does want to be able to make some money and some profit, you kind of have to take that from a financial standpoint as to why they made the decisions that they did. But the film itself is a lot of fun, and me and also Michelle from Force of Light Entertainment actually had a great discussion about this, both non-spoiler and spoiler, on the main channel on OMB Reviews last night. It was a lot of fun. So as I was saying before, though, compared to Ghostbusters 2016, when you adjust for inflation, as you can see, Ghostbusters 2016 has right now is beating out that film. It ended around 48.7 million in its opening weekend, whereas this film's at 44. Again, this could adjust up, right? This could adjust up, which is why you should go see this film for no other reason than to try and make sure that Afterlife is able to beat 2016 Ghostbusters at least in opening weekend. I am not going to be surprised if over this week, this number continues to rise and grow because of the positive word of mouth, to the point where by the end of its next weekend, it's going to be past what we see from the 2016 Ghostbusters. But the only way that can happen is if people actually go out to see it. But I think the Thanksgiving holiday will definitely be very beneficial for this movie. And again, this is currently where the film stands. Talking about the Eternals, as I mentioned, I did a fuller breakdown of this in a video that was not uploaded, but this film is not doing well domestically, right? It's not going to be a domestic hit, but it is tracking relatively well in the international market. It's at $336 million. It needs to make $500 million to break even. It's, again, not a strong chance for it to reach that point, but it's at least a possibility, and you'll see that in my charting in just a second. But I think it's important for us to kind of see where it is that a lot of this love is coming from, because it's not coming from the domestic marketplace. Again, just going to bring up the two other MCU films that have come out this year and show some comparisons here. So at this point, right, it's at $135.8 million domestically. Compare that to where Black Widow and Shang-Chi were. Black Widow was at 154. Shang-Chi was at 176. We all know that Shang-Chi did incredibly well, a lot better than expected domestically. This is a movie that's still very much underperforming, not just that, but also underperforming against Black Widow, which, remember, was also up against Disney Plus numbers as well. And so we have to take that